Today, we're digging up a fragment of a pretty challenging and, let's be honest, maybe even a dangerous mythological epic. We're diving into a narrative that was, by all accounts, intentionally buried. So let's get into it, but I have to warn you, this is way more complicated than a simple story of good versus evil.
Right out of the gate, the narrative sets a seriously dramatic stage. You can see this isn't about getting some gift of enlightenment from on high. Nope. It's a transaction, a really risky exchange that's symbolized by this promissory note signed in negation. This just completely reframes the whole pursuit of knowledge, not as a gain, but as a deliberate and very costly trade-off.
And here we have it, the core concept, the Faustian inversion. I want you to forget the whole idea of a slow, steady climb up the mountain towards wisdom. This worldview presents enlightenment as a tragic bargain, where you literally trade something essential for access to secret, forbidden knowledge. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about the entire idea of intellectual growth.
Okay, so our story unfolds in 3 acts. In Act 1, the seeker, the one who's hungry for this forbidden knowledge, comes face to face with the architect of the whole deal. But this encounter is probably not what you're picturing. See, in this telling, Mephistopheles isn't some beast with horns and a pitchfork. Instead, he's a master of language, a trickster who uses clever arguments, wit, and super complex wordplay to just break down the seeker's defenses. His weapon isn't fire, it's logic, twisted into an absolutely devastating tool. This slide, wow, it just perfectly illustrates the deceptive heart of the contract. The seeker trades away their spirit of becoming. That's their potential, their dynamism, everything they could be, for the spirit of gravity, which is this heavy, static, unchangeable form of knowledge. It's the ultimate bait and switch, trading infinite possibility for a fixed, weighty certainty.
This quote really captures the essence of the trap, doesn't it? The seeker finds himself stuck in a loop of their own creation. I mean, what happens when every profound why you ask is met not with an answer, but with the mocking laughter of a jester? They're given just enough knowledge to see the bars of their own cage.
So the contract is signed, the ink is dry, and now the consequences start to ripple outward. Act 2 is where we see the destructive power of this new knowledge, focusing on a systematic dismantling of the world the seeker once knew.
We enter what the narrative calls the city of ash hues. Here, Mephistopheles becomes the living embodiment of the spirit of negation. His goal isn't just to tempt anymore, but to shatter the very mirrors of social order and to openly mock the foundations of human society.
And the first target on his list? The institution of marriage, a real cornerstone of society. So how does this new cynical wisdom reshape this sacred bond?
Well, in this worldview, marriage is reframed as nothing more than a gilded cage. The mockery is in the idea that it's not about passion, not at all, but about preservation, a structure designed to stifle that fire of the veins, all in the name of stability.
Next in the crosshairs is the church. The assault on its authority is just as sharp, just as deconstructive, exposing it to the exact same cold, hard logic. This is a pretty scathing critique, to put it lightly. Religious sacrifice is framed as a pathetic economy of virtue, basically a hollow transaction where you trade a real lived experience for a theatrical reward after you die. It's presented as a mechanism built entirely on our collective fear of the great unknown. In our final act, The Reckoning, we get to see the ultimate fate of the seeker. They have the knowledge. They've seen through all the institutions. So, what happens now?
The seeker is changed permanently. Armed with this forbidden knowledge, they become a subverter of the social order, standing in direct opposition to the world they used to live in. They can't unsee what they've learned.
To even wield this new power, the seeker has to embrace something called the logic of zero. This is the profound and probably humbling realization that all institutional pride and status is, at the end of the day, unearned and insignificant. It's a complete leveling of the social playing field. And this leads us to the central paradox of the seeker's fate. They become an outcast from every system, even getting rejected by the so-called Council of Inferno. And the reason why? It's not because they're holy or good. It's because their honesty is so absolute, so unflinching, that they can't serve any status quo, not even a rebellious one. They are too true to be a pawn in anyone's game. This image really captures their final path perfectly.
After rejecting all systems and being rejected by them in return, the seeker is left walking this fragile rope over a vast abyss. Their only guide is a brand new definition of courage, the relentless, stubborn affirmation of existence, even when staring into the face of total negation.
So, as the curtain falls, we have to ask the critical question that's been hanging over this whole epic. Why? Why was this story, this entire framework for thinking, intentionally suppressed?
Well, the narrative points to a few key reasons. The dominant institutions were terrified of the trickster's wit, of the power of mockery to undermine their authority. This framework also exposes the mechanics of intellectual censorship, revealing social structures not as noble constructs, but as patterns of collective fear. And finally, by labeling it a heresy, the powers that be hope to prevent what's ominously called the liquefaction of the soul.
And so we end with this provocative question. It really forces us to look inward, to reflect on our own intellectual courage. After seeing the terms of the contract, after understanding the price of this knowledge, where do you stand? Are you a companion brave enough to sign, or are you just a member of the crowd, huddling for safety in the valley? This, right here, is the challenging, unsettling power of the Faustian inversion.